Hi everyone, my name is David and I'm running a session of Trophy using the Incursion Throne of the Forest Queen, which is one I'm working on myself. So Trophy is a game of sort of dark fantasy horror written by Jesse Ross. It's designed to depict a group of adventurers who are venturing into a mysterious forest in search of great treasure, but meeting tragedy and the like on the way. The particular incursion that I'm running this evening, this afternoon for me, is said called Throne of the Forest Queen, and it's essentially a sort of fairy tale inspired exploration of the forest. We'll maybe have a slightly different tenor to other games of Trophy, but it should still follow the same basic model. So Trophy is this game is being run as part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which are run through the Gauntlet RPG community. Website is gauntlet-rpg.com. The game we're running as well was first published in Codex Dark 2, which is Codex is a zine, an RPG zine published by the Gauntlet community, which contains sort of new game material, both standalone games and sort of material for existing games, all focused on sort of the storytelling and OSR end of the spectrum. So do check that out if you're interested. The Codex Dark 2, the copy of the game that the base rules for Trophy are in, is now available on Drive-Thru RPG. I'll put links to all that stuff in the chat below. Without further ado, I will ask each of the players to just introduce themselves briefly, and then we will get into we'll go over characters and character creation. So yeah, as I said, my name is David. I'm based in the UK. And I use he, him pronouns. If we go, I think everyone's put their names on the character keeper, so we'll go in order of that. Daryl, if you want to.
Hi, I'm Daryl. I am based out of New Mexico in the United States, and my pronouns are he, him.
Hey, I'm Peter. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm based out of California in the US.
And I am Jeremy, go by he, him, and I am based out of Wisconsin in the US.
Brilliant. We'll just go onto characters in a second. The first thing I just want to do before we proceed any further is we are particularly as as part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, we commit to using some sort of safety tools to ensure a friendly play environment for everyone. In a horror game like Trophy, I think it's particularly important because we are going to be going into some dangerous territory. We are going to be exploring some sort of quite dark content. So it's important that we can do that in a position where we're all going to enjoy the discomfort rather than actually being upset by it. With that in mind, one of the core ones we have, the Gauntlet inclusivity policy, is sort of key to how we run the games in the Gauntlet, and it's essentially to boil it down, it's basically to say that we accept that we're all here as friends to enjoy having a game together, and we'll treat each other with respect and kindness and generosity that entails. We are going to be we're going to be good to each other basically, and as I said, it's one of these things that hopefully shouldn't need saying, but unfortunately often on the internet does. We also use the open door policy. This is basically to say that we accept that we're here to play a game and have fun. If the game stops being fun, then you can walk away. Even whether that's like if you feel like you need to leave the table entirely, or you just want to take a break for a bit because it's getting too much, or whatever, or even you just need to go and grab a drink partway through. then that's fine. This could also, like I said, this might be because you're actually finding the game uncomfortable or unenjoyable. That's fine. There will be no judgment, or it might just be because something comes up, you suddenly get a phone call you need to take, or whatever other random emergencies will and do pop up. That's fine. If you can let me know when that happens, that's great. But if you do just have to leave, then you have to leave. No judgment. We also use a couple of safety tools. One of these is our lines and veils. We've had a bit of a chat offline about this, just to essentially, lines are a subject matter that we absolutely don't want to deal with in the context of this game. It won't come up as part of the won't come up as part of the chat, part of the game. Won't come as part of characters' backstories. We won't even really refer to it out of character. It's just something we don't want on our table because there's nothing to be gained from it. Essentially, the veils are content that we are happy to include in the game and will be a part of the game, but we aren't going to dwell on them. We aren't going to spotlight them. We might fade to black when something happens. We might skip over it. We might just do it in a very this thing happens and then we do something else. That's what the veils are for. Finally, our kind of emergency tool is the X card. The X card is a fairly simple device. You can invoke the X card by just sort of holding your hands up in an X formation, saying I'd like to X card that, putting something in the chat at the side of the screen, anything, as long as it's going to attract our attention. That's good. If the X card is played, what this essentially means is that we will stop for a moment. So yeah, the X cards that should be played basically if you're unhappy with the content or the direction that the game's going in. That might be because you feel uncomfortable with it personally, or it might be because you just feel tonally it's off or inappropriate or what have you. That's all of those are perfectly valid reasons to do so. I said, yeah, once the X card has been played, we'll just stop for a moment. I might ask the person who's played the X card to clarify exactly what it is that the content that they don't want to include, just so we can avoid it going forwards as well. If that's not sort of obvious from context. Otherwise, once the X card has been played, so what I won't do is ask you to justify why you want to X card something. Just all we need to know is what you want to X card, and then we will all respect that and move on. If something that you introduce to the game is X carded, do not take it personally. It's not a personal judgment against you. Don't feel the need to apologize. Definitely do not feel the need to justify yourselves. We'll just stop. We'll gloss over what's happened and we'll keep moving. It's not something we need to dwell on or have a long discussion about, basically. And I think that's it. So what we're going to do is people can introduce their characters, and if you have any questions about how character creation or what have you works as well, do feel free to shout up. I know you've all been busy with this while I've been rabbiting on. So yeah, again, I'll start with you if that's okay, Daryl.
Yeah, sure. So So I've played Trophy a couple of different times where people wanted to do character introduction differently. So some people, and I kind of prefer this, is to lay out the character on the table and introduce them. And then others want to play pretty much unawares and reveal the character. So how much detail would you like us to give?
I think I don't think we need to go into too much detail at this point. I mean, not to say avoid detail, but I think just a fairly broad brush description of how the character is to start with. We'll probably explore a little bit more about background and motivations and stuff throughout play, but at the same time, feel free to be as descriptive as you like. I just don't think at this point we don't. It's not required that people get super lengthy on it.
Okay. Well, I am playing Priya, and she uses she, her pronouns. Her occupation is that she is a spouse-to-be, although I'm sure there's something else in her past that makes her a bit more rough and tumble and familiar with certain questing situations that she might find herself in. She's a rather determined quester, you might say, but she's got other ambitions at this point, and so she's kind of more of a she's a little bit more headstrong and self-assured than probably she needs to be, but she's ready to go and set off on this quest to obtain the thing that she's looking for.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, Peter.
Yeah, sure. So the character I'll be playing today is Cassian, he, him pronouns. And his occupation is that he is a goat herd. So he's sort of familiar with animals and sort of areas around the forest. I don't know how familiar he is with the forest itself, but I do know that I get the sense that the way he sort of lives, things sort of happen around him and to him. I'm not sure how much he sort of takes the initiative on things. This might even be the first time that he's really making an effort to follow through something of his own accord, which, frankly is bad timing of, things to take initiative on. But yeah, it should be interesting to see what he discovers about himself as he tries to get what he needs.
Brilliant, thank you. And yes, Jeremy, if you want to introduce, so let's do Teoden. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Curious. Let's try that again. I will be playing Teoden. He's a woodcutter, sort of an older fellow, maybe middle-aged. Spends an awful lot of time out in the woods by himself, trying to stay away from his terrible family, and has been already known to dabble in some of the ways of the woods, and particularly is trying to get away from, well, he believes that he has fallen in love with something that he has actually made out in the woods.
Sorry, lost the window with my mute button in it. Yes, brilliant. Thank you. That sounds excellent. Yes, the one crucial piece of information I haven't mentioned yet is in Throne of the Forest Queen. The party will be venturing into the heart of the forest, where within the Queen's Weald, the Forest Queen sits at the center of her court. It is rumored that any who are able to brave the perils of the forest and reach the court of the Forest Queen may ask her for a single boon, which, given her fey nature, could potentially be anything from the miraculous and that sort of vicinity. So it's certainly a tempting prize to be won, though it's a journey that few have returned from successfully. So that's right. So your starting ruin will be 1 plus the number of rituals you have taken. So what ruin is, I'll just give a quick explanation of this now. So I'll do sort of rules explanations mostly as we play through. They are fairly light. Ruin essentially marks how closely tied you are to the forest. As you experience terrors and as you draw on the power of the forest itself, you become more bound to its will. If you hit 6 ruin, you become lost to the forest entirely. Once you hit 5 ruin, you can begin to lower your ruin by performing the forest's bidding. The forest is a fairly cruel taskmaster, and these tasks will not be pleasant, but it's an option that is available to you. So I think we can, with that said, we can begin. So you've been trudging through the outer edges of the forest for a couple of days now, probably. It's wet and drizzly. There's a bit of wind, enough to sort of throw the water in your face, but not enough to actually dry you off. And so it's that sort of rain where it's almost like the air itself is just wet. It's not even falling in drops as such. And even though it's cold, you're still sweating underneath your clothes because it's just that sort of humid and moist in the air. So do you where do you think you began your journeys? Did you all start together? Did you decide to come into the forest as a party, or did you maybe meet each other en route? Daryl, or Priya, I should say. So, Priya, how did you you seem like maybe you're not from around here? Is this you're not as tied to the woods as the other two seem to be? So have you made a specific journey out here?
Yes, I as you may be able to tell from my garb and my lavish clothing, I actually come from the city, and I don't necessarily know my way around here, though I am not the kind of girl who gets uncomfortable getting a little dirty. But I'm sure that I definitely contracted at least one of you to be my guide. And does either of you have like a strong feeling about which one of you I'm paying to help me?
Looks like the...
Yeah, I'm just gonna raise my hand. I'll say it was probably me, and it was probably a very, very easy argument to be made.
I'm sure I got away for a steal.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely believe that, I probably just needed one external reason, and you're like, I'll pay you. And I was like, I didn't even ask how much. I just kind of said, okay.
Excellent. Excellent.
Would it make sense then that maybe the two of you got yourselves into trouble fairly early on, and that I showed up already being out in the woods?
I think that that kind of happy happenstance of, crossing paths is probably good. And then we just discovered that we were on, similar trajectories.
I kind of like the idea that I didn't that you told me what you were doing, and I just sort of decided to hop along. It's like being out in the woods is sort of my thing.
Yeah, and you've probably never made the journey into the deep Fey woods before, because it's a fairly dangerous place. But maybe the idea is seeming more and more tempting to you.
I think that Theoden is very unaware of the actual legends. Like, he doesn't spend a lot of time around people. And so maybe if Priya told him or said what that she was after, he would have been kind of creepily like, oh, that sounds like a good idea.
So I think that's definitely a thing. Priya's probably a little too talkative about what she's out there for and after. And yeah. She makes no secret of the fact that she is just expecting this as a formality. She just has to get this out of the way, and then she's going to go off and get married. So,
excellent. Cool. So, yeah, as I say, you're trudging through the there's, they said it's quite wet. There's a lot of mud underfoot, and everything's got that kind of slightly rotting air of damp mud and leaf mold. But as you come on a little further, the drizzle that's been, like I said, pretty much constant for the last couple of days starts to let up, and you come out into a clearing. And actually, as you enter the clearing, you'll see the sun is starting to poke. It's starting to sort of burn through the clouds. There's a rainbow forming, and as you enter, you hear a sound that's particularly familiar, in fact, to you, Cassian. There is the sound of a small herd of goats bleating, and as you walk in, you'll see there is indeed about a dozen or so goats grazing in this forest clearing. And sat on a rock is a young goat herd. He's a boy, really. He's got sort of tousled blonde hair. He's sitting on a rock, sobbing to himself.
I guess I'm gonna. I'll approach, not even cautiously, just I'll approach and ask, "Oh, what's wrong?"
Oh, sir, I'm sorry. It's my goats. Three of them have wandered off into the forest, and I don't dare follow them in there, sir. It's too dangerous in the deep woods. I hear there's fairies and goblins and all sorts in there, sir. But if I return home without them, my stepfather will beat me, sir, for losing them.
You said they went into the forest?
That's right, sir. He'll sort of point off down a kind of, well, it's just like a little goat track, a little deer track, or what have you, winding between some trees. I think they went that way, sir.
I think I'll just kind of look over at Priya specifically and just, if we're headed in that direction, maybe we just keep an eye out.
you see her just kind of like roll her eyes a little bit, and but then she like puts on a smile and walks over to the boy and sets a hand on his shoulder and pats it and says, of course, we'll be sure to keep an eye out for your little ones."
Thank you, madam. That's most kind of you. If you can bring them back to me, I would be most grateful.
And I say, "Oh, but young man, why would you be so scared to go into the woods? You mentioned these hobgoblins and fairy tale creatures, but surely we live in a much more civilized society that doesn't believe in such things anymore."
Well, madam. They say in the deep forest they still live, and they take away young boys and girls and keep them as pets, as we would keep these goats ourselves. It's I do not know. I mean, perhaps it is but superstition, but no, I do not. I do not wish to chance it.
And I think that she like reaches down again and like tousles his hair and just says, Well, one day when you're a big, strong man, I'm sure that forests won't scare you anymore.
Perhaps you're all right, madam. Perhaps you're all right. And he'll kind of, rub his eyes and his snotty nose on the back of his sleeve and try and look brave.
I think I looked at the others and realized that I just kind of like signal. It's like, all right, let's go. We've done our job.
I will sort of hang back and let the other two go first, kind of following the path. And then before I follow them into the path, I'll just sort of turn to the boy and kind of grumble, mind the rest of your flock, child. Best not have any others go missing.
Of course, sir. I'll be. I'll keep my eye on them. I'll be most attentive. I'll remain here until I have to return in the evening. If you can bring my goats back, I'll be here.
I shout back over my shoulder, "What's your name, boy?"
Oh, it's Galen, madam.
It's like, well, Galen, we shall return.
And I think I'm just going to kind of add on, maybe a little unhelpfully, hopefully we'll return.
Priya just rolls her eyes at that too.
Perfect. So yes, you begin to make your way along the goat track deeper into the woods. So you don't have an exact direction that you want to be going in per se. All you really know is it's deeper and deeper into the woods, and presumably it will become apparent as you get closer, but you know that you've kind of got to get right into the very heart of the forest. This seems to kind of skirt the edge of the woods a bit, though it does go deeper in than this path you're on does seem to go deeper in than you have been previously. So yeah. Cassian, are you looking out for these for the goats?
Yeah. I think this is something that in my own way I've done before, just because, this is my own occupation. And I'm just I'm not trying to separate myself from the others, but I'm just trying to keep a lookout, listening to see if I can hear them from afar.
Excellent. So I think we'll make this a test here, because I think mostly to give an example of how this works. As I think there is potential risk here, because the forest is, even if it's not, even if the Fae are mere myth, there are certainly wolves and bears and the like that lurk in the forest, and perhaps other threats. So the way that making a skill check or a test of doing something in Trophy works is if you have an appropriate skill from your occupation or your background, you roll a single white dice. You can justify your skills as appropriate. You'll also basically, when you're trying to do something, the person who is taking that test will say what they want to achieve, what their sort of success condition is for the test they want to make. They can then ask me and perhaps the other players as well what we think will go wrong if they fail it. and we can give some suggestions there. It's then also possible you can request, or perhaps someone can offer, a devil's bargain. What a devil's bargain is essentially a complication that will happen regardless of whether you succeed or fail at the check when you undertake it. So either way, that devil's bargain will happen. So obviously it can't be something that would invalidate the success of your outcome, but it can be something that would complicate the success of your outcome. If you do accept a devil's bargain, you get to roll a second white d6. What you're looking for when rolling these d6 is so on a 1 to 3 you will fail, and something probably bad will happen to you. On a 6 you will succeed, and you will get to narrate how you succeed at the task you've set out to do. On a 4 to 5 you will succeed, and you will get to narrate how you succeed at the task you set out on, but I will then add a complication onto what you've just done. So that's the basics of the roll. The other thing to take in mind is that you'll see in the roll for your party, there are also some purple dice in there. If you are taking an action and you wish to risk your mind or body while taking that action, and there are probably some actions where just by dint of taking them you will be risking your body and mind, certainly when we get into the more unnatural things later, then you can roll a purple dice in there as well. Also, when you've rolled, if you want to re-roll your dice, you can do so by adding a purple d6 to that pool and rolling all those dice again. You can keep doing this as many times as you like, adding an extra purple dice each time, with the exception that if the highest dice in your roll is a purple dice, you can no longer re-roll that set. So with all that said, Cassian, do you think that you have a skill that would aid you in locating goats?
Yes. So being a goat herd, one of my skills is in beasts, and I think in this case goats certainly count. So
yep,
that gives me 1 light die. I think it's a little too early for me to be willing to risk my mind or body for them, so no dark die for me. And I will certainly take a devil's bargain or suggestions for one. Oh, sorry. What I'm trying to accomplish is just to see if I can find the goats along the way. Whether that means I have to go out of my way to find them or just sight them.
Certainly. I think failure in this is likely to mean that you may or may not find the goats, but something will find you. And for a devil's bargain,
getting separated.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. So I think regardless of whether you succeed or fail, you will have just roamed a bit further away from the others than you intended. Not so far that you'll be kind of out of earshot, but just so that when you have to deal with whatever you find, it will take them a moment or two to reach you. Do you wish to accept that?
Yeah, I'll take that. So I will go ahead and roll the 2 light die. 6.
Excellent. So yes, you can narrate how that shapes out for you.
Yeah, so I think that, I'm kind of, I think in my mind, I've been leading the group without really paying attention to the fact that at this point, I don't even think I'm the first one in the lineup of us. And so, I'm just kind of thinking, well, we're here to find the goats, even though, uh, you know, everyone else has their own agenda. And I think I probably hear some sort of bleeding off in the distance, maybe a little off to my right. And assuming that people are following me, despite the fact that I might even be in the middle or last position, I just kind of head in that direction and take a turn past a tree that everybody else takes a left at, and just kind of end up heading off in that direction. And I think, the noise gets louder as I go.
Excellent. Yes, and you will come into a clearing, and you'll see three goats. They're kind of huddled together, looking at something. But we'll come back to you in one moment. Priya, Teodan, which of you do you think is the first to notice that Cassian is no longer with you?
I think I probably noticed. I have a feeling that Priya is in the lead.
Yes, and I'm just assuming everyone's following me. So,
and I was kind of taking up coming up last. So I probably realized that that he's just not on the path anymore. I think he probably just sort of mutters, "Ma'am, ma'am, ma'am, ma'am."
what is it? I turn around and I'm like looking behind you, and I realize it takes me a second, but I realize that I'm looking straight at you and not through Cassian at you, and I'm like, where has the lonely goat herd gone?
I shrug.
And I start and I turn around and I give a shout and I'm like, goat herd.
Yeah.
Theoden visibly flinches at the noise.
Yeah. And you call her, and you can. So it will only take you a moment to notice, because I don't think. Cassian is probably used to being sort of out in the wilderness and the like, but I didn't get the impression that he was being especially stealthy. So you can probably make him out sort of just a little bit further off down a side path.
I think Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think just because Cassian's at least a little bit familiar with sort of getting lost in his own way, I think, if you guys do spot him, it's probably in part because he hears the goat herd call and kind of turns and just kind of waves you guys over. So if you see him, it helps because, a moving target.
I think when we do see that, Theoden will take a knife out and do a across the bark of one of the trees, just to kind of leave a little mark that we've been here, and then sort of quietly slip through the brush towards. I'm forgetting your name. Towards Cassian.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so in the clearing, as I say, there are three goats. They are grazing, but they're kind of huddled quite close together. As Teodan said, and as you come into the clearing as well, you will notice that what they appear to be kind of keeping a wary goat eye on is there's a fox, but its leg is caught in a trap. It doesn't appear to have actually broken it, but it's tangled up in a snare sort of thing. and it's whimpering and kind of looking up at you, almost with a look of pleading in its eye.
Yeah, when I see that, I think the camera is gonna sort of see from the fox's point of view. They'll see me sort of like looming over him and then like pulling an axe out. And then, just sort of like a grim set to my face. And then I'll drop down and try and put the axe between the teeth of the thing and start trying to pry it apart so that the fox can get loose.
Yeah, certainly. You can manage that. It's not a it's designed to be opened if you actually have access to the edges of it, sort of thing. If you have hands, basically. So you can manage that, and the fox will kind of jerk its leg free, and it does that sort of thing. It stumbles a little bit. It's clearly been trapped there a little while. It's a little unstable on its feet, but it kind of gets its footing back again, and it kind of circles around between your legs a couple of times, almost like a house cat, before it yips and bounds off into the forest. And tell me, what sort of you obviously felt some sympathy for this creature. How did its sort of plight in there remind you of your own life?
So kind of like flashing back to a hovel on the edge of the woods. Like, I think my father was like, we were like woodsmen, right? My father was a woodsman, but I think he was injured early in his life, or like early in his adulthood while I was still kind of a kid. And I basically started working the wood and doing all the labor around the house, like all the men's work around the house, probably when I was like 13 or 14, maybe even younger. And my father was just an asshole, always sort of putting things upon people and assuming that everyone would do what he said, even though he never really contributed anything to the house or to the home. And it always felt like especially as I got older, being in the house and the house itself always felt like a trap. Right? It always felt like I couldn't get out. And so I would sort of intentionally spend more and more time in the woods as much as I could. Come back later every day, right?
Perfect. That's excellent. So we're just past the hour now, so I think we'll take a quick 5-minute break here, and then we'll get back and explore further. Right, excellent. Priya, while Cassian and Theoden have been tending to various animals, how are you reacting to this?
So basically, Priya's a little annoyed. She is she's a little too headstrong for this particular kind of wholesome nonsense. Like she understands it and she like feels for the kid, but also it's like not the reason why we are here. And after all, every single pit stop and sidetrack that we go on means that it takes just a little bit longer for me to get to the Fairy Queen and get what I need so that I can get home, because I have really pressing stuff waiting for me at home.
Excellent. You will. Are you Cassian? You've managed to gather up these goats, and they seem, I mean, as cooperative as goats ever get. Are you going to lead them straight back to the boy?
I think what I want to try and do is sort of nudge them back in the direction that we came from, but I'm trying to keep in mind the fact that it's probably not a good idea to take them all the way back. I don't know exactly how far we've gone, but it seems like if they haven't gotten far,
it's not been that far. So it's probably not even an hour since you left the boy. Probably half an hour or so, maybe.
I think I'm gonna look to Priya and say, do you think we have time to just get these three back, or should I just try and shoo them along their way?
They're goats. They know where to go. I mean, how much are we expected? Are we going to, walk the entire way back and deposit them in that boy's hands, and then have to start all over again?
No, you're probably right. I mean,
and then I kind of like lean over and I put a hand on your shoulder and I put on my most charming smile and I say, you know how these things go. You know that it'll be fine. I mean, we're on a little bit of a mission. We're going to run these errands and then everything will just go back to our normal lives. It's going to be fine. We can always count on everything working out in our favor.
yeah, and I think I'm gonna give you this very like wide-eyed look, like whatever you just said. I'm like, okay, sure, we will continue to think that, and not whatever else I've been told all my life.
I mean, whatever you've been told, I've been told the opposite. So,
yeah, basically, and I think I'm not going to put up much of a fuss. I don't think I'm used to putting up much of a fuss about anything.
I am skilled in determination.
And I am skilled in following.
Theoden huffs and spits and shakes his head and sort of like starts heading down the path that we were going, for Theoden is skilled in despair.
Excellent. So you set the goats you set the goats loose, and they do seem to head vaguely back in the direction of the of the young goat herd. They at least don't start going in completely the opposite direction, and that's about the best that can be hoped for.
I actually one retro thing I'd like to say. Yeah, I think I would take the little animal trap with me.
Yep, certainly, by all means.
And it's sort of bothering him that someone out here would be leading this sort of thing.
Sure thing. So yeah, you continue. You continue a little further into the forest along this this track, and Priya, you will be the first to notice, being in the lead. There is an old woman sat on a stump at the side of the path. She's again. She looks dejected and weary. And she looks up and says, "Young miss, what brings you into this so deep into the forest? This is no place for a respectable lady like yourself."
And I walk over and I kind of like kneel before her and I like place a hand on her hands in her lap and I say, "Oh, Granny, I'm on a quest to seek a boon from the Fairy Queen. But, you know, if this forest is as unfitting for me, it is even more unfitting for someone like you. What are you doing out here?"
Well, it's a dangerous path you walk, my child. These woods are more dangerous now than once they were. I'm an old woman and set in my ways, and I still keep to my old cottage. I was on my way into market to sell honey from my bees that I keep. And I was set upon by bandits who stole them from me. You should keep a wary eye out, for there is bandits and worse in these woods. If you seek the Forest Queen, there is much danger in the path ahead for you. The fairies are wicked things. They will attempt to steal you away for their own if you venture into their lands.
And I smile at her and I say, "Oh, Granny, it's fine. I know my way around people who are not what they appear."
Well, go with care, my dear, but I suspect there's nothing but tragedy awaiting you. But Gods be good, maybe you will return.
And if I see those bandits, perhaps I will be able to persuade them to return your stolen honey.
I would be mightily grateful if you did. It would be a great kindness of you.
And I like look at the others. I look at the others and I look back at her and I say like just one last thing. It's like, is there anything else we can do for you? Such an old lady like you shouldn't be all alone in these woods.
I get by. I've been here a long time. Don't know how much longer I will be, but until then I make ends meet. I mean, obviously since I lost my latest shipment of honey, times are going to be tough, but I'm sure I will manage.
Is it known that people live out here?
Some, certainly. It's not many people do. It's a dangerous place to live. or a strange place to live, certainly. But it's so some people certainly do.
What are these bandits, ma'am? How many?
Oh, there are but three of them. I didn't get a very good look, but they had masks on them, black masks, and they carried wicked cudgels.
Sort of like look up and stare off deeper into the woods. Look back at her. Look back in the woods. Best be getting home, ma'am.
Of course, I think you're right. I would not like to be caught out here in the dark. And she'll kind of hobble to her feet and start making her way down another little, almost imperceptible path deeper into not deeper into the forest, but away from here.
I think I turn to the others and I say, that is just deplorable, taking advantage of an old woman like that. I can't stand people who treat other people so poorly.
Yeah. What is it that makes you you particularly sort of sensitive to the plight of this this woman, Priya?
So the reason for that is because actually I kind of like think back to when I was growing up, and I was the oldest sister of three. And as the oldest sister, nothing interesting ever happened to me. It was always my younger sisters who were charmed and cursed and enchanted and went off and found marriages and things like that. And I was just there, left to like take care of my family's home. But my grandmother always treated me like I was also the heroine of a story. And she motivated me to go out there and find my own story. And that's actually how I became such a determined person, because if my story wasn't going to be written for me, I had to go write it for myself. And my grandmother motivated me to do that.
Nice. Thank you. Okay. So you will continue onwards, deeper into the forest. And you reach you can hear the sound of a babbling stream running not far away from where you are, just a little bit down a slope. And as you get to it, the path here actually starts to widen out a bit, and it actually connects with a road. Would be giving it too much credit, but certainly a wider and actively, what looks like an actively maintained path leads down. And you can see there is I said there's quite a fast flowing and moderately deep, you think, river running through, and this path leads down, and you can see what appears to have been at one point a bridge, but is no longer. And there are two people stood on either side of this broken bridge. It's not specifically the sort of the route you think you need to take is that sort of carries on along the river rather than across it. But are you going to investigate further, or are you going to pass on by?
I think just due to my own curious nature, I'm going to investigate.
Yeah, you head down down the path. So it's not far. It's maybe sort of 50 feet or whatever down to the bank of the river. And there's a man dressed in quite fine clothing on this side, and a woman similarly attired on the other. The man, what did I say? Oh, hello. I don't suppose you know another way over the river, do you? This bridge that we came to seems to have been washed away in a flood or something.
How deep is the river? Could you just walk across?
No, it's a bit rough for that. And my lady friend here, and he'll indicate across, and she's wearing kind of your classic vaguely medieval princessy, huge voluminous skirts and the like. It's like I think my lady friend would find it somewhat of a challenge to make it across in her current attire, and
I think Priya has come up to stand next to you, and so like, and of course you cannot ruin such fine clothing with water. And then she kind of rubs her hands together and she says, "Let me try something. And I'd like to use one of my rituals." Yeah.
excellent.
So I'm going to use Unfall on the river to reverse gravity in a small area and try to toss the river into the air.
Perfect.
So that it creates a reverse bridge.
That sounds excellent. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's that's clearly what. And I think what would be. I think actually, what I'm going to. I think that the thing that might happen if you fail is that rather than reversing the gravity in the river, you might actually sort of intensify it essentially, and that could have all sorts of unpleasant consequences. What do we? I think that regardless of the devil's bargain I will offer you, unless anyone else has suggestions, or if anyone else wants to offer a different devil's bargain, that's also cool. But I think the devil's bargain I'm going to offer is that regardless of the outcome of this, and even if they are grateful if you succeed, they are going to view you with suspicion and nervousness for having exhibited strange sorceress powers.
Well, ungrateful people. I think that I think that I'm going to take that bargain just because I'd like the ability to potentially stave off rune, and I do not have I do not have a skill in ritual, so yeah. Okay, so I'm rolling with one ritual die, or one ruin die, and one white die.
Sure thing.
It's a white 1 and a ruin 6. So,
well, you succeed, and you get to narrate the outcome of your success.
Right. So, so she puts her hands out in front of her and like focuses them on the river, and then you actually see there's this like her right eye starts to glow, and then like there's this like almost like this like weird like runic projection that kind of appears in front of it, and as that happens, like drops of water from the river start to like rain upward as if it's like falling from the ground, and then all of a sudden the river just like shoots up as like a deluge of water, and it creates this like kind of arc of water that shoots over the riverbed, and there's just like, it's almost like it becomes like a trellis of water that hits the other side, and it's spraying water all over the place. But now there's the riverbed, and they can the man or the woman could potentially walk that path to their lover. Oh, you're muted.
So I am. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, and the woman will scurry across the riverbed, and her lover will help her up the other side, and they will both, you know, he will bow and she will curtsy to you. They will say, "Oh, thank you for your aid in this situation," but you can tell they're not looking at you. They've got their eyes averted, their heads down. They say, we must away to we are on our parents forbade us to marry, but we must but we are running away together, and thank you for uniting us, but we really should be getting on, if it's thank you. And they kind of hurriedly start to make their exit. So what I'm going to interject with here briefly is a discussion on ruin. Some circumstances will cause you to make a ruin roll. This is essentially when you're exposed to something strange or disturbing or otherworldly about the forest, you may have to make a ruin roll. And what this is just a single roll of a purple dice. If you roll higher than your current ruin, you gain a point of ruin, so your ruin will go up by 1. This can result in some sort of odd effects happening to you, but will largely be about the forest increasing control over you. If you roll under your equal to under your ruin, nothing further happens. If ever you come into a situation where you think making a ruin roll is appropriate because you think that you're disturbed, feel free to volunteer for it. I will try and keep an eye out for it, but if something sort of weirds out your character, then by all means say, no, I think that's probably a ruin roll for me. In addition to this, when the highest die in a roll you've made is a purple die, that counts as if it were a ruin roll. So in this instance, because Priya has rolled a 6 on the purple die and that's set, this counts as Priya having made a ruin roll. And I believe that will result in an increase in ruin for Priya. So I think I was thinking what one I want to go for here. I think no, actually, I quite like that one. I think my suggestion, Priya, at this point, is that and if you think something that you think you'd like more or something different, then we can have a chat about that and we can see. But I think what's going to happen is you're kind of some of the water from the river kind of splashes on you as say there's a kind of big arc of it, and and as it settles down again it continues. But as you continue on, you'll start to notice some of the forest creatures, just benign things like little, sparrows and bluebirds and other similar birds and squirrels and the like will start kind of flocking to you. And you'll occasionally just have a little sparrow land on your shoulder or squirrels running around your feet. They don't seem to
like
be. Yeah.
like that because it's kind of like, oh, it's like a Disney princess, but it's not good.
Yep, that's perfect. So
I suggest a little detail to throw onto that. Like they land on a sparrow lands on her shoulder at one point, and it's super cute and adorable when it's looking at her. And then as Cassian kind of comes into view, it sort of turns and looks and like at him before it like flies off.
Cool. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So yeah, in fact, that was what I was going to. Cassian, how did you feel seeing sort of the two lovers separated by the sort of broken bridge?
Yeah, so I think that I was probably. I mean, I think what was interesting was that one of my first responses to it was just, well, why don't you walk across? Because it just seemed like an obvious thing, even despite the clothes. But the actual separation, I feel like this is something that I've experienced before, and it's maybe not even like a separation from my goats, but more like I can understand the loss, and I think that in a way it's like, well, you have one of two choices. You can either just get across the normal way, or you can't. So even like the whole unfall ritual was a surprise to me, because I was it clearly there are now other ways to accomplish what you want. But if there's the whole sparrow thing too, then I think sure there are other ways. There are also costs for those other ways.
Sure thing. Nice. So yeah, you will continue along the path, and for a little while, the forest around you gets denser, and it's still you're still getting a lot of sunlight through the canopy. It's bright. It's quite dense forest at this point, but there is still some light breaking through. And you can feel kind of the landscape starting to slope upwards as you're beginning to proceed uphill, and you can see sort of more light coming from ahead. And you'll come out into, I mean, at first you're kind of expecting it to be a clearing maybe, but as you emerge from between the trees and the trees start to thin out a bit more, you actually find yourself emerging onto like an alpine meadow. So it's lush green grass growing up the side of an increasingly steep hill. There's wildflowers and edelweiss and stuff growing amongst the these meadows. They slope upwards and onwards, and you can sort of, by this point, you kind of you can that you kind of need to keep this, is even though there's not a physical path to follow anymore. This sort of way seems to feel sort of right to you. This is clearly kind of the direction you need to be going in. Yeah. I think Teardan, this you've spent you know, a lot of time exploring the forest, and you've never come across this sort of terrain here before. You've never come, obviously, to the specific part of the forest, and it does seem. So, what is it about this place? I mean, other than just the sort of being odd, what sort of strikes you as being strange about it? But why also does it feel right that you're here?
I think it's something about the flowers in the meadow. I think they're a type of flower. I think that the flowers are all in bloom as though it's early spring, even though it's late fall or, like mid fall. And so it takes everyone a moment to really tell. And I don't know if anyone else even would notice, probably Cassian. But it like they're blooming out of season, and that is both alarming and welcoming. And it's an unexpected thing of beauty, but it's also clearly not right.
Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, you'll continue on through the meadow, and I say it's that the sun is beating down. The sun is bright in the sky, but it is that kind of let's say it's sort of springtime feeling. So there's just that like pleasant sort of chill breeze to the air, but your skin is being warmed by the sun from above. You continue onwards, and as you get higher up these meadows, you start to get that sort of pine forest around. Again, a sort of alpine-y feel to it. It's not dense forest at this point. It's much more, quite widely spaced pine trees, up sloped hills. Night is beginning to fall. As you kind of look back across the meadow behind you, you've got that sort of mist has started to form, and it's cutting off a lot of your view of the path that you've brought up to this point. And the sun sets, and it's those beautiful pinks and oranges and golds spreading across the meadows behind you as you're getting closer to the edge of this continuation of the forest ahead of you. Priya, as you seem to sort of be in charge of this expedition, what are your orders going to be regards? Do you want to camp here now, or move further into the forest, or look for shelter?
I think that we want to seek out shelter. Certain guides before had talked about there maybe being hunters' lodges somewhere nearby. So I'm hoping that we could perhaps find a roof to put over our heads, because I'm not the kind of girl who's used to spending a night on the ground.
Certainly. Do you think you'd know how to locate one of these cottages, or do you think you will task one of your companions to do so for you?
Oh, I definitely task Teodan with it, and I basically just like say pretty much just that. I was just like, I think we need to find a place to sleep for the night. I believe I heard heard rumors of these hunting cabins, and I am not one to sleep on the ground. So let's try to find one, or I'll be a very unhappy camper.
I will start looking around for one, but frankly, don't it. Basically, would just be on the path, right? Like, this isn't something where no one's going to make a hunter's cabin that's not easy to find. So basically, I think that means that Theoden will just sort of like grumph and take the lead and start looking around for maybe we'll come across one of these magical hunters cabins. But he's already starting to just sort of size up spots where he could quick like chop down a couple of trees and make a lean-to.
Certainly. Yeah. So I guess if you want to try and find a hunter's lodge, it definitely would be some kind of test here, which obviously you can choose to make if you want to, or if you decide you'd rather just try and improvise shelter, that's also viable. So what do you think you want to do?
Well, I am very curious, so I think that my curiosity means that I probably just, stave out or stride out into the forest and go try to find a cabin.
Sure thing. Yeah, that's fine. You'll be. I'd agree that curiosity is certainly an appropriate skill to use for that. So yes. What specific? What do you want your success to look like if it happens? Or what does success mean to you in this circumstance?
Success in this circumstance means that I find us a cabin that would be a place that we could stay the night. And basically it's, keep us out of the elements and let us have a restful evening versus a lean-to where I will pitch a fit.
Certainly. I think probably the most likely thing that if you fail, this will be not just not finding the cabin, but probably actually maybe getting slightly lost off the track as well, and in somewhere less suitable, or with some definition of that. I think. Does anyone have a devil's bargain they'd like to offer at this point?
Yeah. What about it's occupied? If we find it, it'll be occupied.
I was thinking that, but the thing with the devil's bargains is they do need to work either way. So I think that maybe what I will maybe offer for the devil's bargain, I think kind of riffing on that idea, is that regardless of whether you succeed or fail in finding the cabin, someone or something will have picked up your trail.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down for that. So I'm going to roll 2 white dice. And one of them is a 6.
Perfect. Describe the cabin you find, I suppose. Describe finding it, and feel free to detail the cabin itself when you get there.
Yeah. So Priya sees Theoden making a very half-assed effort to try to find shelter, but is already sizing up trees to make his lean-to, and she just kind of stamps her foot and then charges off not sprinting, but very much power walking in any blind direction. And then after about 4 minutes or so, she stumbles upon a clearing, and then in the middle of the clearing is just a log cabin that looks, the windows are dark and the door is kind of half open, and she gets puffs up her chest, and she's very very proud of herself, and she turns around, she almost shouts, but then remembers how Theoden kind of shamed her for it earlier, and then decides to like just kind of like stage whisper back. It's like, "Hey, I found something." And like in the hopes that like maybe Cassian followed halfway or something like that.
Yeah, I think with Cassian, he, Theoden was probably like, "Oh, we're gonna try and make this lean-to," and Cassian was like, "Uh-huh, uh-huh," and she's gone. Okay, I'm gonna follow her. Just because I don't think that... I think so far she hasn't led me astray yet. Putting so many conditional modifiers on that statement, but I'm just worried.
Okay, excellent. So yes, you will enter the cabin, and it's that kind of classic. Yeah, it probably has like kind of the little stone footing sort of thing with then kind of wooden. I think rather than like being a log cabin, it's like that kind of carved wood, almost sort of Hansel and Gretel-y, lots of unnecessarily ornate filigree isn't the right word, but yeah, engravings in it, little hearts and little rose vines up the side of it. It looks really cute. And as you open the door, it's odd. It both has that feeling of not being occupied, but it looks in very nice condition inside. There's a sort of certain coziness to it. It feels welcoming and inviting. And I'd like for each of you to describe. It's like perhaps not the grandest of cabins ever, but it is furnished inside. And I'd like you all to describe how something in here that makes you feel comfortable and welcome, and how it's nicer than your own home, really, in whatever way that might be. So yeah, I'll start with Priya.
I think the thing that sets it apart is that there is, just to really lean into it, there's the smell of baked goods like lingering in the air, and it's not a fresh smell. Like these weren't made like earlier today or something like that, but it's just like this like ever omnipresent whiff of like cake. And she's not used to that because like her family is a little bit more austere, and desserts are not like a thing that we really keep in the house. So
yeah, Cassian.
Yeah, so yeah, so I think actually it's just the simple thing of when you go in, the roof is structurally sound and completely solid, and there aren't any like holes where light could pass through. Because I think back at my own home, I've not really been too concerned with keeping things super well put together, and most of my living spaces I just try and keep worked around any places I might need to patch up later. So I just think it's the fact that this is sort of this insulated space that isn't really able to be touched by things outside.
And I think for Theoden, it's two things that really sort of like catch in his throat. The first is that there's a small table, nothing fancy, nothing amazing, but it's small. It's a small table, and it is set for. I'm not sure if I think it's set for 4 people. It's clear that someone has planned to share a meal here. and like with company. And then the other thing that sort of catches him is sort of around a corner. There's a bed that is big enough for two people, and it's nicely like it has a nice quilt and a throw over it, and it actually like it's made as opposed to just being basically a floor mat that occasionally he'll wrap himself around in a blanket in.
Nice. Yeah. So, and you will in fact find there is some food in the house. There are some baked goods, some like cinnamon bun type things piled up on a little tray with a kind of just with a towel, tea towel sort of thing over the top of them. There's some dried sausage hanging up, and some ham. There's nothing hot. There's nothing that looks freshly cooked, but there is certainly food here. And it's comfortable, and yeah, it's relatively warm. There isn't a fire going yet, but the place itself feels quite warm, as if there has been one lit within the last couple of days or so. There's not that kind of chill that you get from an empty house. What are you going to do? Are you going to sort of how much hospitality are you going to treat yourself to here?
I think that Freya definitely goes to claim the bed. Like that is the thing that she definitely wants. But even though she looks longingly at the cinnamon rolls, she doesn't actually take one of them, because though she has certain expectations, she does not presume. And
Yep.
so yeah, she like dejectedly eats just like some like stale bread from her pack.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I think Theoden, we sort of like see him stepping around in this place, particularly up to the table where the play settings are, looking deeply uncomfortable and yet kind of longingly. And he like kind of reaches out and just sort of touches one of the cups, and like he just sort of like, and then lets it drop, sort of not really quite believing that it's real, and thinking about all of the implications of having someone there that set this for him.
Sure thing.
Yeah, and I think Cassian just kind of, I think he's just gonna kind of try and take everything in, but I'm not sure how much he actually touches or takes, as much as he just kind of instinctively sets himself up at the foot of the bed. But I don't know if he's entirely willing to sleep. I think he is going to pipe up and kind of say, maybe one or two of us should take watch. I know this is it's the forest. It might be dangerous.
That kind of breaks me from my reverie, and he kind of like looks up. I'll start a fire, and if there is wood inside, he'll just sit down and start like starting a fire in the hearth, and if not, he'll go out and chop some.
There's already some corded wood stacked next to the fireplace.
Okay. And then if like after he gets the first bit of it going, he'll then sort of almost immediately go outside and start gathering more to replace what he used.
Yep. As you head out into the wood, darkness has started to fall properly now. The moon is hanging low in the sky, casting everything in silvery light. And as you're sort of gathering some probably just some fallen wood for the time being, the shadows have lengthened of the trees, and they almost seem to kind of writhe around like fingers, searching for you. You can hear in the distance, but probably not as distant as you'd like, the howl of wolves.
I look over at Cassian and I say, "That is why I wanted walls between us and the outside."
You've heard no complaints from me. And I think I'm just going to kind of walk over and sort of poke my head out the door. Just kind of trying to keep an eye on where Theoden is. Because it would be such an awful thing to just wake up the next day and be like, oh, by the way, Theoden's gone. Maybe dead.
I'm surprised that he's stuck with us this long. It's strange, come to think of it. He's never really told us why he's accompanying us. I just assumed that he wanted the fairy's grace as well.
I'm sorry, can I interject?
No, I was going to say, I think, Theoden, how are you reacting to the howls of the wolves and the lengthening shadows?
I think largely he doesn't care, right? Like, this is a man who has spent much of his life out in the woods. The wolves are, all right, well, let's keep your eyes open, but it's not anything to panic about, especially since we do have a cabin that we can retreat into. But I think when Cassian sticks his head out to sort of check on Theoden, he's found Theoden sort of sitting with a bunch of brush and some replacement logs kind of gathered. And he's just sitting on another log, and he's twisting some saplings, like little bits of sapling and other branches around. And he's doing something with them in his hands. And I don't know if he sits and watches to see what it is, but the camera eventually shows that he's basically making one of those little Wicker Man things.
Nice.
Maybe about yay big, just sort of like tying it together. And there's already like one already sat down sitting next to him, and kind of like almost perched to like be looking up at him as he's making the next one. And he's kind of mumbling to himself.
That's nice. That's nice. I almost feel that should be a ruin roll just for being creepy, but I don't think it's quite there. But yeah, that's nice.
A ruin roll for Cassian or for Theoden?
I mean, it's creepy enough, and I'm not exactly certain that I'm comfortable with him staying awake while the rest of us fall asleep. So I think from the doorway, I'm going to try and use my ritual, which is sleep.
Excellent. We have that will be just a purple d6 roll for you. So presumably you're looking here to put Theoden to sleep. Just to clarify that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, it's more like the ritual takes long enough that I'm hopeful that maybe by the time I finish, he'll be back inside, and then it'll just be a nice drift off into a slumber. The alternative, I guess, would be he falls asleep out there, and I just kind of dragon inside.
Yeah, that's fine. I suppose, Teodan, do you want to offer a devil's bargain on this? It seems fair to offer you the chance to.
I think the devil's bargain is that I realize what's happening right as the spell kind of overtakes me. So I know that I've had the whammy put on me.
Yep, that's fair. It will. You will know, regardless of whether it fully works on you or not. You will be aware that that something strange has happened to you, and perhaps its source. That sounds cool. So you can obviously choose not to accept that devil's bargain, Peter, if you don't want to. But if you do, you get to roll a white dice as well as your purple dice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I think that's. I mean, we're all gonna eventually turn against each other. This is just quickening it along.
Indeed.
Okay, so yeah,
what's
I'll
the
go
spell
ahead.
before you roll the dice? What does this spell look like? Like, what's the ritual look like?
So basically, it's I think I don't know if even Cassian fully realizes that he's had this ability, but it's basically just like sort of this like little hand motion thing and sort of like a little bit of muttering, and he's just kind of like it's almost like he's sort of caressing one of his hands as if he's like gently just kind of caressing someone's hair, and the muttering is supposed to be like kind of gently humming them to sleep, but sounds just the slightest bit not like that. So, okay, I'm going to go for one dark, one light. Let's do that. Let's do that. Boom, boom. Okay, I got a 6 on my dark dice.
Excellent. That's what we like to see. The best of both worlds. So yes, you get to narrate how the spell takes effect, and that you can. They said you can decide how you want that to happen.
Yeah. So I think as I sort of finish the ritual, I'm kind of like almost holding my hand like this, kind of waiting until the last moment to complete it. And then as Teodan finishes and brings the wood in, it's just kind of like a smooth, like, finish. And like as I just kind of like one of my hands just kind of stays there, I think it's actually a pretty swift effect. But with regards to the devil's bargain, I think it's something that I have to do where I'm keeping an eye on the other person. So I think at the very end of it, even as Teiren's eyes close, I make eye contact with him. And there's just kind of this look of I think it's not so much that I give any indication of like, oh my God, what's happening. I think it's the fact that I don't seem to react at all. And I've been reacting to just about everything.
Nice. Cool. Right, we'll take a quick 5 there again, and then we will get back to the fallout of your ruin roll there. I didn't notice everyone was back. I was just in another tab. Cool. Yeah, I think I know the condition that I'm going to apply. But again, if you have any suggestions yourself, Cassian, let me know. Because yes, you obviously from that role you will have gained a point of ruin. I think actually though first what I'd like to know is what was it about Teodan's behavior, his actions, and or just the dolls themselves, whatever it was in that scene that really did make you worried. What was that sort of what was that feeling that kind of made that seem necessary?
So I think I saw sort of a glimpse of maybe what the fox had seen from its perspective earlier, before he freed it, and it was just kind of, he's the only one of us that's really got this big axe, and I think it reminded me of my brother who carried with him a similar weapon, and both the fact that he knew how to use it and it was still not enough to save him, but also he threatened once or twice to use it on me.
Interesting. So yeah, I think the condition that I want to apply onto you, well, I'll explain it in a minute. But like I said, if there's anything else you have in mind particularly, do suggest it. But when the spell is cast, and as I say, you're making eye contact with him as Teodan drifts into sleep. And as his eyes close, and you also feel, when you do that thing where when you're really tired, and I always think of it as, when you're sitting in lectures at uni or whatever, where you just kind of do that thing of kind of nodding forwards and your eyes go, and you just kind of snap out of it again because you're not actually going to fall asleep, but you kind of do that almost as if that, like, the sort of spell had kind of ensorcels during it slightly as well. But you shake it off and it's fine. But you do have that moment of disorientation when you do sort of shake the sleep out of your eyes. And it's funny because when that happens, you suddenly don't remember. It's an odd thing. It's both, you're not sure how long it was since last you slept, and even whether you have been sleeping. And as you kind of try and think back on it, you just can't remember quite how long it's been since you started the journey. And you sort of run a hand on your cheek, and is there maybe a little bit more stubble there than there was before? It's odd. It's nothing, and it's one of those things that after a moment you kind of pass it off, but there's just that nagging feeling that you've just kind of lost track of time a bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's actually kind of perfect. It's almost like I gave him some of my time. I like it.
So, presumably everyone will have a night's sleep eventually. In the morning, Priya, you will awaken to find several squirrels and a thrush squirming about behind your traveling cape. They kind of drag it across the floor towards you, and mostly just sort of writhe around with it and get it covered in hair. You're not quite sure what's going on with that.
I like shoo them off and then pick it up and like try to shake it out, and like hold it up to it, and the smell of the forest is like even stronger now.
Yeah,
because now it's not just water; it's critters too. So
yeah, and a couple of squirrels will be kind of grabbing onto the hem of it with their teeth as you pull it on, and it's almost like they're trying to help you into it, but they're squirrels and they're not very good at it. Teardan, you've just had either the best or the worst night's sleep of your life. Which was it?
I think it was simultaneously both. It was an extremely deep sleep. And I think he dreamt of a happy home, right? Like I think he dreamt of like years of living in this place and going out and then being happy to come home and have someone there waiting for him. Like with a hearth, hearth burning, food cooking, someone waiting there to like smiling and welcoming him. And he sort of like had this lifetime in this one evening of sleep. And then when he wakes up and realizes that, fuck, like none of that actually happened. None of it was real. And it all starts to just fade almost as soon as he starts thinking about it. That it just leaves this cold pit in his stomach, especially when he like finally stretches and gets up and sees that he's like set one of his little wooden dolls that he makes to keep himself company. Is just sort of like sitting, leaning up against the wall on the wood pile and mocking him.
Excellent. So, I suppose, yeah. So, Teardan, you have kind of vague, if slightly muddled, memories of Cassian watching you as you fell asleep. Are you going to act on them at all, or just
in a very passive aggressive way? I'm going to, largely just sort of ignore him and avoid eye contact with him. But Teardan's not exactly he wasn't a good socialite anyway, so it's sort of hard to realize that he's giving the cold shoulder. But in particular, what he does is he makes sure to, wherever Cassian was sleeping, he goes over and kind of like cleans the area up a little bit, and he makes sure to like grab a little lock of like a single hair that's kind of like left from behind, and he just we see him sort of like grabbing it and wrapping it around a little twig and putting that in the pouch.
Nice.
Little squint eye over his shoulder, but that's all he does.
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen with a little look of hair? You will proceed. You said most of you are well rested, if not entirely happy with the situation, and you'll proceed onwards. You travel on, and you travel through these dense, it's sort of these pine forests, and it actually gets higher and higher. You actually find yourself crossing something that's starting to become actually quite mountainous, but then you come down on the other side and proceed onwards. the forest becomes more like what you were familiar with previously before sort of getting into the pine forest. It's more sort of deciduous again. You've got those very light green leaves that are showing a lot of sunlight through them, a lot of gold sunlight through the green leaves, sort of dappling the forest floor as you continue your way onwards. As you continue, who do you think is the first person to notice voices raised in song and jubilation? I'm wondering, is perhaps I've lost my I was gonna say I think maybe Cassian. I believe he is quite alert.
Yeah, just a bit.
So yeah, so Cassian, you're heading through the forest and you hear voices raised in song. It's a folk song you're familiar with. Is it sort of a a ribald lusty folk song, or something more of a murder ballad variety?
Definitely the latter. I think it even sounds just. I think it would sound even a little bit melancholy if it were solo, but sort of the chorus of voices make it sound like this rather deep and sort of reverberating sound that is like, I'm certainly the first one who hears it, but I don't think, once pointed out, it's hard to make out.
Not at all. No, not at all. And it's as you say, there's that kind of resonance to it, and it's funny because it's clearly it's a fairly crude folk song type that's being sung. It's about someone being lured down to the river and drowned, as these things tend to be, it's like I said, it's that fairly simple, fairly crude kind of folk song. But it's like if you imagine a sort of a group of people sat around singing songs around a campfire, except they were all opera singers. It's their voices are beautiful and resonant, and they appear to be emanating from a glade in the woods up ahead. Priya, how do you react to hearing this song?
I am certainly not as familiar with this kind of thing. Being from the city, we don't do the songs that we sing at parties are a little different. We don't usually, sing those kinds of songs. We're a little bit more merchant class, so yeah. So I think Priya is actually uncomfortable, and though she's still very invested in getting what she wants, she's a little unsure of how to address this particular issue.
Certainly, and Teodan, how do you feel about this? Do you want to investigate this further, or do you want to try and avoid the singers?
He's conflicted, or I think I'm conflicted. It certainly is curious. I think if he was here by himself, he would sneak off and try and find them and spy on them. But since he sort of feels like he's a little bit responsible, at least for Priya, Yeah, so I think everyone can see me sort of like looking in that direction, kind of getting this sort of wistful look, and then looking at Priya, looking back, looking at Priya, and then kind of like hrumping, picking up the axe, and like walking like perpendicularly to the direction that the sound is coming from. So trying to edge around it.
Sure thing. So yeah, you're heading down, and the song comes to an end, and another song starts up. And this one actually is a song that Priya would probably be more familiar with. It's a sort of think something like Green Sleeves, or something of that nature. A sort of appropriate Shakespearean musical term. A sonnet or whatever put to music. It's a bit more refined, and again, the voices are beautiful, or at least distinctive. Some of them sound. The voices sound rough, but the voices sound rough in the way that like Tom Waits' voice sounds rough. It's got character to it and a power to it. So yeah, I'm just thinking. Yeah, so do sorry, I lost my. I was just seeing if yeah, sorry. I was just checking something. So if you want to try and avoid this glade, you will, as you're kind of walking around, you will sort of notice that it's the path. The path you've been following does clearly lead into the glade itself. It is possible to avoid it if you basically break out into the wild forest, which is a possibility. That's something you can do. So what do you think? What do you think, Cassian? Do you think that this would be that avoiding this would be the safer course of option?
I think avoiding it would be safer. I'm not sure how much of it is the right move, and I think with my memory the way it is, I don't know. I think I'm going to kind of look to my companions and just kind of. I know it's out of the way, but should we go investigate or should we avoid things? Or we've been at this a while. It might just be best to press on.
What if it's the bandits who stole that honey from that old lady?
Singing bandits.
They're people too. They like to sing.
They could be the bandits, but is it really a good idea for us to go after them directly? Because there's 3 of us, and while one of us, and I think I kind of side-eyed Theoden, has an axe, I don't know if we're in the best shape, per se.
I suppose you're right. I think of that poor old woman, and I can't help myself.
You know, let's just see. Maybe it'll just be a brief detour.
At the very least,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, at the very least, maybe I throw them up in the air.
Yes, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll get a good punch and knock him out for a while. And I say that as I'm like not looking at Theoden.
Yeah, maybe you will knock him out.
I don't know what's happening here, but it seems we're all in agreement.
I guess that Theoden will kind of like shrug and then go first. Misguided notions of chivalry and all that.
Sure thing. So yeah, are you kind of creeping up on the glade, or just sort of walking in as if you own the place?
Creeping, definitely.
Excellent. Yeah. So yeah, as you get closer, you come across. You can see into the glade, and the people inside are quite obvious as you see it. The glade is bathed in golden light. That proper full on, as I said, green and gold dappled, summer in a forest lighting. Cast over everything. In the center of the glade, there is maybe a dozen or so figures. They're singing, they're dancing. There's sort of a couple of goat-legged men drinking out of a wineskin. There's a female-looking figure with green leaves for hair, and it seems naked, but with that sort of smooth, almost polished-looking skin, the color of the color of beechwood. There are elegant figures in long, flowing gowns garlanded with flowers. Yeah, this is clearly a fairy glade that you've stumbled across. There is a huge table made out of a tree split in half down the middle of the glade, covered in all manner of foods and drinks. And I'd like you all to tell me one thing that you see in this glade that is the most beautiful thing you've seen in your life, and how it reminds you of something from your past.
Yep. I think the woman that you described, with like the long flowing hair and the leaves growing out of it, I think she maybe spots Theoden, spots me looking in, like out from the brush, and gives this. I mean, one, she's just sort of like his picture of beauty, right? But also, she gives him this warm, welcoming smile, like she's so glad to see him. And it's just sort of, it actually, like, what it makes him think of is the flash from the dream, where he couldn't put a face on the partner that he had in that lifetime of a dream, and until now.
Nice. Yeah. Cassian, how about you?
So I don't think it's a particular person, but I think one of the oddest things, but also the most beautiful, is the fact that despite being so far into the forest, the clothes these people are wearing are immaculate. It's completely dirt free and everything, almost as if they've been, sort of carried and dropped down from outside the forest. And I don't think I've ever seen anything that clean in my life. Everything's a little bit dirty, at least. But this is different.
The thing that Priya sees is that on the other side of on the side of the dryad, there's there's a bush that's like grown out of the ground, and there is it's almost as if a gown had been put on the ground, and then this bush just grew up into the gown, and now it's being held up on the tree, and the gown is just the most beautiful, kind of piggybacking off of what Cassian said, the most beautiful gown of white and gold with green hints throughout it. And Priya realizes that it looks like a much more splendorous version of the wedding dress that is waiting for her back home. And it is just, it's impossible that it could be here. And it looks exactly like it, except so much more sumptuous. But there it is.
Perfect. And yeah, the glade, all around it, there are wonders. And there's sort of hanging from the trees, there are portraits and paintings and pieces of sculpture, and even a stained glass window hanging down from one branch. All of those things seem to be of human make, but are sort of exquisite works of art. They're just sort of displayed amongst the trees. But yes, as you said, Theodan, you have been noticed by this dryad, and she will just place a hand on a tall figure. Zed has pointy ears and long flowing hair, and flowers weaved throughout the hair. They will. The pair of them will glide towards where Theodan is stood, and the taller figure will say, welcome to our revel, mortal. It's been such a long time since we have had mortals here. Please, you must come join us, drink, dance, eat.
Theoden, I kind of gulp and avoid eye contact, and then sort of steal a glance up at the dryad, sort of looking for her invitation.
Yep.
And start mumbling excuses.
Yes, please, mortal, come join us. It would be most enjoyable to have your company here. It has been such a long time. Few make it this far into the forest.
Theoden will, I don't know why I keep speaking in third person. I'll kind of look up, look down, look up again, and smile kind of awkwardly, and then take a tentative step out of the woods and into the glade.
And the dryad will come forwards and take both of your hands in hers. And the skin it has that feeling, that sort of smoothness to it of wood, but there's a warmth to it. It's like a tree, that's taken a lot of sun on a hot day. And she draws you towards sort of where some of the others are singing and dancing.
And I think there's maybe a quick shot from the camera of seeing the axe leaning up against the tree, like away from being left behind.
Excellent. Yeah, perfect. So Cassian, as you see Theodan being led into the glade by this dryad, what do you do? How do you react to this?
Sorry, felt like I was about to sneeze. It just wasn't happening. No, I think that, I mean, in a way, just as it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, I'm also now extremely wary, because if these are part of the forest, the forest isn't necessarily this welcoming. And so I guess the thought on my mind is, what is the price, per se? What aren't we seeing? And I think I'm just kind of I'm using my alertness again, and just kind of trying to gauge if there's anything off, because these, clearly they haven't had mortal company in a while, partly because it's so deep in the forest. But if it's just them, why don't people come deeper in the forest?
Excellent. Yes, that sounds interesting. If you'd like, so yeah, how do you think that succeeding at this role, what do you think that would do, or what do you want that to do for you? That you could either narrate what you so just to sort of make it clear before we go into it, you can, I suppose, what I'd suggest is that either you can just narrate what you see and how you feel about that. If you succeed, that's obviously perfectly fine. Or if you want, you can ask me some questions, and we do it that way. Whatever works for you, really.
Yeah, probably the second one, because I think while I can say what I see, in a sense, I'm not sure what I'm looking out for.
Certainly. No, that sounds cool. We'll kind of treat it, I guess, a bit like a sort of spend hold for questions move in a PBTA game. I think it seems like a sensible way of doing it. Well, say you can answer a couple of questions. But yeah. So if you'll get you have alertness, so you'll get a white dice for that. Mm-hmm. I think that my I think I'll sort of play off of that idea, and I think I will offer you a devil's bargain, that your you will be noticed by members of the fairy host, and they probably will, beyond just noticing you, they will probably learn something of your nature. So I will ask a question of you in return.
Absolutely.
Cool. You may, if you wish, risk your mind or body on this, though you are not required to do so. You're not under imminent threat.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm gonna say that I will risk my mind just because I'm not aware entirely of what the fairy realm entails, and there's entirely the possibility that there's something about this that just I'm not expecting that could just take me entirely by surprise. And I think I'm looking out for. I was about to say my friend, and then I was like, is he my friend? If I just like the previous night put him to sleep, it's a very complicated uh ship. I was about to say friendship, but it's just a ship at this point. Uh, yeah, so I'll go ahead and roll all three and
Perfect.
just see what happens.
That's been coming up a lot today.
Yeah, so I rolled a 6 with my ruin die. And so that puts me on. Oh my god, we're all at 4 now. That puts me on par.
Excellent. Yeah, but so you do succeed. So you get to, as I say, you get to Kanasumi. Well, start by asking one question, and we'll see where it leads to. I'll be fairly generous with answering and letting you have additional questions.
Okay, so I guess my question is, my first one at least, is we've sort of each seen what's beautiful. What is something that I see that I notice is definitely off?
Certainly. So I think actually there's probably a couple of I'll start off with the. So yeah, the people here are beautiful, and everyone seems to be having fun. Everyone seems to be happy here. No one is angry. There's maybe maybe a couple of the fawns or a couple of the satyrs or what have you are being a bit more boisterous, but there's no there doesn't seem to be any animosity here. But when you are looking at these fair folk in their festivities, in their enjoyment of this, the one thing you will notice is that their eyes are cold and not, like I said, still not necessarily angry or even predatory necessary, but whatever seeming of humanity they have does not reach all the way into them. They are strange and alien creatures, and you know that you cannot fully either understand or trust them.
Okay, I think I really only have one other question, and that's what presents the most immediate danger?
Certainly. So, okay, yeah. No, that's the thing that presents the most danger here currently. As well, these beings. I suppose I'll give you one freebie. In gaming parlance, these creatures are all monstrosities of the forest. They are powerful supernatural beings. If you just tried to, fight your way through them or what have you, they would destroy you. They are powerful. They are magical. But that isn't the biggest danger to you here. That's really only a danger if you force the issue. What actually is the thing that strikes you as being the most dangerous? So, as I said, there is this table laid out with lavish food and drink. And there is all sorts of there is like any food you can imagine is on this table. And it all looks fresh and piping hot, or perfectly chilled in the case of the big bowls of chilled fruits and ice creams. It is not possible. There are no signs of campfires around here. There's no sign of cooking. There's no kitchen. There's no servants. There is absolutely no way this food can be real, or at least natural.
Okay.
To Theoden, like basically about to just like have a big old bite out of a steaming hot thing of mutton.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh God. I feel like the worst because I'm not gonna. I think I see that and I go to open my mouth and then either. Oh, I think before I can react, let me find out what my ruin consequence is.
Yes, that is a good question. Although first, what I am going to ask, because I also get to ask you a question from the Devil's Bargain, I am going to ask what is the one thing that they could offer you here that might tempt you to join them? When it's not necessarily going to be if they then do, you have to do that, but it's what sort of what's of all there's priceless works of art, there's delicious foods, though you might be a bit wary on that one by this point. There's beautiful people, there's these fantastic clothes you've seen. What's the one thing that you would have the most difficulty turning down if offered?
I mean, with all these things, I think it's actually I think it's interesting because I haven't really talked about why I've come into the forest, and I think it really has to do with the fact that it's not even so much for myself. I think if it was just for me, I'd say safety or protection. But I think it's sort of just a means to riches of some kind, enough to buy my brother's freedom.
Excellent. Cool. So yes, and now we will go to the consequence for your ruin roll. So again, I'm going to ask first. Do you have anything that you think you would like to bring into this? I can find some suggestions. If not,
Yeah, I don't think I have anything just yet.
no, that's fine. So, no, I think I'll go with that actually. Yeah, because you did express an interest in that earlier. So, I think what's my suggestion is that as you're it's that sort of thing where you hadn't really noticed at the time, but you hadn't noticed this up until now. But like the clothes you're wearing, I mean, I assume you're wearing fairly sort of rough, sort of homespun garb anyway. But it feels like really heavy and really itchy. It's just everything you're wearing just feels uncomfortable. Your boots sort of pinch your feet. Your the fabric of the of your shirt and your trousers just feels like, almost like that kind of really, really itchy wool against your skin, but more so. And it feels kind of, it's just chafing against your skin.
Yeah, so, oh man. So I think that, I I think even in this, I think I do try to, I make to warn Teren of what I've realized. But then I get that itchy sensation, and it's enough to distract me before I can fully get any words out. So, eat away.
Yeah. So, Teodan, as you take a bite of this leg of mutton, it is the most delicious piece of meat you have ever eaten, and even though it's mutton and it feels and tastes like mutton, it's tough. It's not like a delicate a delicate sirloin. It's a fairly tough piece of meat, but still, it's just got that. As you bite into it, it's got that really satisfying kind of, you sort of tear a piece off with your teeth, and it's rich and savory, and delicious. And can you make me a ruin roll, please?
with relish. So I rolled equal to my ruin.
Okay, that's fine for now. So it is delicious, and it is, it tastes like nothing you've ever eaten before, really, or an intensified version of something you've eaten before. But yeah, it's it seems to have no adverse effect on you for now, so that's all fine. That's all fine. I'm sure this will be brilliant. Okay, so I think I will call a final break here for another 5 minutes. I'll leave a message for Daryl in chat in case he gets back while we're away, just to let him know. We'll see. I know he said he might. He was on call from work today, so we might it might be a while till he's back. But so if you want to take 5 minutes now. Hey, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I said it's these things happen. Worked out quite nicely as well with you getting back. Said we just cool. There's so just to give a very brief recap on what happened while you were gone. I think the main thing is the obviously Teardown was lured into the glade by the lured. That's such a invited graciously into the glade by a dryad. While Cassian watched on, Cassian got the feeling that these obviously as it may seem that these fey creatures are definitely not as benign and as friendly as I find. They're clearly not human and not motivated by human desires. They are monstrosities. Crossing them would probably be bad. And there's something off with the food. It is not possible for the food that is here to be natural. However, Teardan has just eaten some, and so far does not seem to be suffering from any ill effects. He did have to make a ruin check, but passed it. So that's about where we're at. Yes, and it was like the most delicious food he'd ever eaten, obviously. That's where we're at. So Priya, at this point, as I said, Teardan has entered the glade. He is dancing with a dryad and has just eaten a nice leg of. It has the dryad sort of dancing with the dryad with one hand, with a leg of mutton in the other. Seems to be having a generally good time of things. Cassian is still hanging back a bit, looking a bit wary of the whole situation. What does Priya do?
Well, Priya kind of ignores most of the other things and goes over to look at that gown that was there and see if there's possibly any way that she might take it for herself.
So as Priya's looking at this dress, another elven figure appears at your elbow. Oh, my dear, that gown would look simply gorgeous upon you. You must have it. You must, absolutely, please. And the elf lifts the dress carefully off of the sort of the. We're going to assume it's a topiary bush in the shape of a woman. That's certainly what it looks like once the dress has been removed from it. And holds it out to you with both hands. Please do put it on. I wish to see you in this. I think you would be most delightful in it.
And as the dress kind of falls into Priya's arms, and it's so soft and so beautiful and like hypnotically like drawing her in, she almost like starts to like undo her cloak and then realizes that like it's like a very immodest thing to do, and that there are men around, there are strangers around, and and she looks warily around for like a place she could potentially go to afford a little bit of privacy.
Certainly, there is some, in fact, actually, there is a sort of embroidered silk chinoiserie, 3-piece dressing screen on between a couple of larches. But
That's it. And then Priya like takes the gown like without even thinking about it and not questioning the very poor judgment, because she is innocent and because she is uh, curious about this gown, and she goes behind the screen and slowly starts to throw off the cloak that still smells of forest and shed off the outer garments of her clothing and steps into the gown.
yeah, and a couple of bluebirds will get tangled up in the sort of ruched velvet, and you can eventually extract them without too much damage. Yes, you put the dress on, and that will be a ruin roll, please.
It's a 2 under my 4.
Certainly, yeah, and yeah, the dress is exquisite. It feels it feels far lighter than it looks than it should do. It still feels well warm, not necessarily. It's very warm where you are anyway, but it feels comfortable, incredibly comfortable. What clothes does Priya actually feel most comfortable in, physically rather than necessarily socially, I suppose?
So I think that the clothing that Priya finds most comfortable and the ones that she spends the most time in when she's not, in front of other people is probably actually like just kind of like a nightgown kind of thing with like long bloomers or something like that. It's a very frumpy outfit, and it's
Yeah.
not fashionable at all.
Exactly, and it has that sort of feel to it. You don't have, because whilst it has that impression of being very fitted and pushing and lifting and separating and whatever else, it just feels like you're essentially wearing a potato sack, but absolutely does not look like that. It looks amazing on you, and it feels incredibly comfortable to wear.
And I think I like step out from behind the screen and I look around and I see Cassian, and I gesture at the gown, and I with this like seeking approval look of like, what does it look like? How do I look?
Yeah, and I think Cassian just Cassian kind of just does a side glance either way, like I'm being asked for my opinion, and kind of looks back and just kind of like actually enters the glade and just kind of says, honestly, it suits you rather well, actually.
Like a blush like crosses over my face, and it's the first time that you've seen Priya like not look utterly like self-assured and in control of it. Like she's got this like innocent glow about her.
Yeah, no, and I think Cassian even at that point can't even help but like smile a little bit, and as he's like just kind of like scratching himself a little bit, he's just kind of like, I mean, maybe this will all work out.
Yeah, and said the itching is really getting to you now. It's not even just like itching and chafing, but the clothes you're wearing feel too warm for the environment you're in. You're kind of sweating and like under the clothes.
Oh God. Okay, I think I'm just gonna turn to one of the closest dryads and be like, I'm sorry to ask this. Do you have any like change of clothes? It just feels really, really hot under here, and I don't know what it is.
Why bother with clothes at all? I'm sure the lords and ladies would not object. The dryads are as you might expect, are just completely naked with that sort of strange wood skin thing going on. But
Yeah.
we can probably find you something if you insist on clothing.
I mean, I wouldn't mind either way, but I just want to make sure that you know, I am traveling with others, and I want to take that into consideration.
So yeah, they will. The dryad will scurry over. Scurry. The dryads don't scurry. Will glide over to somebody, and a moment later, you will be led actually, in fact, behind that same screen, and handed a bundle of clothes to put on. Nicely folded, I should say, not a bundle, but yes.
Yeah. And I think, the itching's gotten bad enough that I think the minute I get the clothes, I'm not going to wait for like a screen or anything. I'm just going to change. Yeah.
Certainly.
Sorry, Priya.
As you take get naked in the forest, it feels right, and it's so much better. And you look down, it's not, you don't have a rash of it, but your skin has gone that slightly, just started to take on that slightly reddish, and it but that sort of starts to fade. And as you put these clothes that they have on for you, they are comfortable. They are similar sort of feeling to what Priya had, but they feel, as I said, they feel comfortable. It still doesn't feel quite as good as just not having any clothes on at all, but it's not uncomfortable. And you've kind of been given like the very very tight breeches and the sort of brocaded jacket and high knee boots sort of thing. And yes, I will also have a ruin roll from you two, please, for wearing fairy clothes.
Yay. It's the same as my ruin.
That's fine for now then. Okay. So I think I'm going to hard frame the next bit. So the Elven Lord will thank you and say, "It's been a delight for you to spend some time with us, mortals, and I'm glad you've accepted our gifts." I know you seek the court of the Forest Queen, but know that first you must cross the domain of the Stag Knight. He will hunt you. But should you escape his grasp, the Queen will welcome you with open arms into her court. It is the final test you must pass. Of course, it is rumoured that if he is caught, the Stag Knight himself will grant you a boon, but I would advise against that. He is a powerful being and does not brook opposition or disrespect lightly. And you will presumably head further on into the forest along the path they've shown you, as they sort of they do this thing of like gesturing, and a couple of trees actually move out of the way to reveal a path beyond that leads further into the forest. And as you're walking along this path, the forest changes again around you, and the trees are much older and more gnarled. They look like they look centuries and centuries old, the trees. The foliage has that kind of autumnal browns and golds in it, and there's a chill in the air. Your sort of breath comes out in mist, and as you walk through the sort of the dried bracken crunching under your feet, you'll see a figure approaching through the forest. He is massively tall, so 8-9 foot tall, physically imposing, absolutely beautiful. He looks mostly like a human man, but like I said, like sort of the ideal of like a sort of Grecian statue walking sort of thing. But with he has deer's hooves and an enormous pair of antlers coming from his head, and behind him is a pack of baying hounds and wolves and other stranger creatures, and a gaggle of goblins and other twisted fey creatures. So, mortals dare set foot in my forest. You should know the price. These lands are mine, and all in it belong to me. I will. If you are able to leave my lands, then you will have earned your freedom, and I will thank you for the sport you have given me. However, if I catch you, you will be mine forever. And a scrawny, twisted creature will come to his side, holding a huge curved ram's horn out to him. And he lifts the horn to his lips and gives a little smirk. And before he puts before he actually blows into the horn, he says, "Any questions?"
I turn and run.
Fair.
I'm about to make a grand speech, and then I see Theoden run, and I'm like, well, okay, I've got much less ground to stand on now. But and I'm still wearing this beautiful gown, and I look almost fairy-like myself, aside from the fact that, I have like the less ugly, the ugliness of mortality still in my face. But I say, brave stag knight, might we find some way to barter safe passage through your lands? And I'm trying to use my charm.
Certainly, yep. That's cool. You may absolutely do so. What we will you'll get 1 dice for having the skill. I think it's probably safe to say you're probably rolling a purple dice for risking your body or mind here. Because
for sure. Putting my neck out, literally.
Exactly, yep. So in terms of a devil's bargain, I think that you will be the focus of the Stag Knight's attention, for good or ill. If you accept the devil's bargain,
I am willing to take on that cost.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm rolling 1 dark dice and 2 light die.
Yep.
And I got a 6 white.
Nicely done. Nicely done. So tell us, how does give your speech and tell us the outcome of it.
So I say, brave knight, we come merely as supplicants to the Queen's throne. We seek her charity and her grace, and we mean no harm to you, your kingdom, or your lands. We beg of you to provide us with safe passage, even just to go upon our own way. We ask that you not bother yourself or your subjects with our presence, and simply turn thine eyes to bigger problems. For we are of no concern to someone as great as you.
And he will chuckle. Oh, you are a bored little thing, aren't you? Thinking that you can treat with me on equal grounds. But, and he will reach out with one of his hands and sort of he will take the sort of the sleeve of your dress between his big thumb and finger and say, but it would be a shame to see such a pretty thing get ruined in this forest. So take care, little one.
And I
This hunt will continue. I do not rest until I have my quarry. But for now, carry on your way.
And I give like a really deep curtsy as I've been taught, and I say, we thank you for your magnanimity and your mercy. And I'm like very quickly like behind me, like gesturing to Cassian, like go.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trained in following.
Excellent. Yeah, so we will kind of go with that. I think that will do for that scene there. And so as you're heading through the forest, the stag knight is walking behind you. He is following you, but he is not running, he is not chasing, and he is keeping the rest of the hunt at his heel.
Sorry to be like, I just wanted to find out, which way did Theodan run?
Yeah, I'd like to know that too.
Deeper into the woods.
Yeah, so I think we will have a role for Theodan running, because
Yeah.
appropriate. So yes, do you think you have a skill that is relevant to your dash through the forest?
The only one I could even make an argument for is despair.
I think that's a fair argument.
All right.
You are essentially giving in to absolute terror and acting on instincts. I think despair is a fair a fair call.
Good.
Yeah, and again, I think it is probable that you are acting at risk to mind and body here as well, because there are other horrors in these forests.
So I think my goal is to get enough distance between me and the hunt to have time to calm down and think, and perhaps employ a plan.
Certainly, yeah, that's fair. I mean, to be honest, if you want, you can just reach the fairy court at this point. If there's something else you'd rather do, that's fine. But you can.
No, I actually specifically don't want to get to the fairy court.
That's fine.
That's fine. Like, I'm actually picturing sort of as he's running, a little flashback to as they were leaving the Dryad and that grove, when the elf lord sort of said something about capturing him. Like if you can capture him, he'll grant you a boon.
Yep.
I think I said something under my like something awkward, and then looked up at the dryad and said, "Then I shall capture him for you, my lady,
Nice.
and ask of you your hand as a boon." And then yeah. So I am trying to get enough distance to enact a plan.
That's
Looking for a devil's bargain.
certainly. I think the devil's bargain will be that in your haste you drop something or lose something, and I will let you define what that is when it comes up. It will have to be something important to you, obviously, but yeah, you will get to choose what it is that you lose.
Okay. All right. So 2 white dice and 1 ruin die. I got a 6 on the white die and a 3 on the ruin die.
Perfect. Yeah. So tell us how it looks as you flee from the Forest King.
So I think there's that moment of fuck, and he just like turns and runs right as Priya is about to start giving her speech. We have the scene with the speech, and we kind of cut back to Theoden just running through the woods, and then this kind of like look of kind of panic, and then a flashback to that scene. Like him vowing to capture the whatchamacallit, the huntsman. And then he kind of like flashes back to him, and he starts slowing down and panting and catching his breath. And he like stops, and he starts looking around, or like looking around, getting ready to enact his plan. And as he opens his backpack, we realize that there's a tear in the pack, and the bear trap that he let the fox out of has fallen out, and it's been lost, like somewhere behind him, and that was largely his plan.
Right. Excellent.
So and once he realizes that, he just sort of like looks around and starts seeing saplings, and he pulls his knife and starts to like chopping them and starting to like cut down enough, and we see him start twisting and making little things again.
Yep, excellent. So yeah, you're attempting to ensnare the stag knight.
Actually, no.
No.
I am attempting to create a bunch of little distractions. Using the enliven ritual, give flesh and breath to a human effigy.
Certainly. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So I think I'm going to offer you, I suppose, possibly the obvious devil's bargain here, which is to say that when you animate these effigies, they will do what you command for a time, but they will not remain under your control.
I think I'll pass and just go. Oh, wait a minute, but I don't have. Yeah, screw it. I'll just go with the risk die, or with the ruin die.
Certainly, yep.
Could I offer a different bargain?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned taking some hair from Cassian earlier. What if all of your effigies looked like Cassian, and then you had to like make like peace with the fact that you are sending these lookalikes of this other person basically off to their doom?
I like that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I totally like that. All right. Actually, I'm gonna one up it, and we actually discovered that not only did he do that with Cassian, he also grabbed a little piece of Priya's hair. Not creepy at all.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, rolling. All right, I got a 4 is the highest roll, and the ruin is only a 1.
So you can, if you want, re-roll that with an additional ruin die in there.
No, actually, I'm going to just go for it because a 4 is still a mixed success, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
So yes, so yeah, you can narrate you can narrate how how this goes. I will add a complication.
Yeah. So I think what happens is like we see him sort of like doing the like planting the 2 of these little effigies in the ground, and then saying like he actually takes the knife that he used to cut the effigies with, and he like does a little on his hand and drops a little bit of blood onto him, and the camera actually like lingers on this, and we see that his palm is just covered in white scars from having done this apparently dozens of times before. And they, like as the drops hit them, we kind of like the camera pans around, and then like they go out of frame, and then when they come back, it's the 2 of them wearing the clothes that they were wearing when we left set out, and not like the fancy elf clothes. And then I sort of whisper something to them and tell them to lead him to me. But then I kind of like rush off and prepare an ambush.
Yeah, that's cool. And you can narrate the ambush happening as well. I won't. I don't want to sort of cascade into a series of rolls. I think this can achieve that.
So I think then that, like there's a cut to them sort of like running into into a clearing. Like the effigies running into the clearing with the huntsman coming, and the big I'm going to suggest that the complication is that it's not the huntsman that's following, but rather it's like his horde is at the lead of it, and I hadn't really accounted for that. And they sort of like tear apart the effigies and then start baying and around and hounding, and they find me, like corner me up in a tree, and I'm like looking down, surrounded by all of these guys that are like these monstrosities and wolves with nowhere to go.
Could I suggest a little extra flavor on top of that?
Sure.
I would love if this happened like on like just the other side of a thin bank of trees, and Cassian and Priya see themselves being torn apart by the horde. And I would love to make that ruin roll.
Certainly, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll follow that, after that with my own.
Yeah, I got a 6, so that my ruin increases. Yeah.
Yep, nice.
All right, let's just see, it's entirely possible that like maybe this doesn't affect me. It does. I rolled a 6.
So many 6s on ruin rolls today. Okay, so I believe that means that both Priya and Theodan hit ruin 5. Sorry, Priya and Cassian hit ruin 5. So
that means, though, that we can now start turning on each other and destroying treasure in order to lower our ruin.
It does indeed. So when your ruin reaches 5, you may now reduce it by acting in the interests of the forest, destroying treasure, preventing the use of rituals, or sabotaging your fellow treasure hunter's exit from the forest. You should do these acts in a way that does not draw attention to yourself. The more it looks like an accident or simple bad luck, the better. And basically, every time you try and do something like this, you roll a white dice. And if you get lower than your ruin, you succeed and decrease your ruin by 1. And you can keep using that even if your ruin drops below 5. So yeah, the 2 of you who have just hit, we will get onto conditions in a second. I'm going to say, given what has just happened here and the time we're on, we are probably not going to reach the final ring. This has a somewhat final feel to it, I think. We'll see, but I suspect that this is going to be our end game. You will both be sort of intuitively aware that, much as was just said, specifically the forest is less keen on destruction of treasures per se, though doing so will still satisfy it. What it does really want to do is prevent people from leaving, because obviously it wants you mortals to be here forever. That's its key drive in this thing. But yes, we will discuss. Again, I will ask Cassian and Priya, do either of you have something in mind that you think is going to affect you as the forest gets its grasp into you, or do you want me to make a suggestion? Priya first, I'll say.
I definitely have an idea. So I think there's two things. First is that around like the bodice of the dress, where you can see like the exposed skin of Priya's like chest and collarbone, where the dress is touching, you see that it's starting to her skin is taking on that kind of beechwood kind of effect that we saw on the dryad. And then also when she saw herself get torn to shreds by the horde of Feyhounds, she started to sweat, but that smell of sweat was overwhelmingly the smell of the forest. It's already like in her blood at this point.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Yeah, it's almost like I imagine the sweat's almost like coming out almost like sap, that just slightly sticky, and almost leaving a kind of varnishy residue on her skin.
Like a single drop of it like rolls down my forehead.
Yeah. So, Cassian, how about yourself? Do you have any ideas, or would you like me to suggest?
I think it's sort of a twofold thing. One is that with the clothes that I'm wearing, it starts to become this thing where the clothes themselves are almost a part of me. You can't quite tell where like the sleeves on my shirt end and my arms begin. It just starts to become like one of me, almost like I'm not wearing clothes anymore. And then the other thing is that when I see the horror in front of me, I think I instinctively want to scream or cry out. But the only thing that leaves me is the sound of a goat bleeding.
Nice. Yeah, no, those are both really cool. Thank you for those. So I guess I'll go back and say, yeah, Priya, how do you react? What do you do? You've just seen an effigy of yourself torn asunder by the wild hunt.
I think that originally I was so the Stag Knight is following us, right?
He is. Yep. He will probably he'll give you a big wolfish grin as he watches the effigies be destroyed by sort of the pack of hounds that he obviously loosed to go after it.
I think that I think originally I was walking arm in arm with Cassian, kind of like trying to like walk steadily, but not like too eagerly, but not like too slow to get like through this patch of forest. And I think at that point I let go of Cassian and I turn away from the Stag Knight and I say, I will be a bride, and I run forward to try to make it towards the fairy court to try to get to the thing that I want. And I'm just leaving Cassian behind.
Certainly. So, do you what do you see this as being? I guess, do you see this as being a ruin reduction roll, sort of abandoning him to his fate, or more of a test to try and achieve something, or do you just want to run?
I'm trying to basically like find a way to remove the gesh in my eye that's like makes me unmarriable, basically. Like
Right.
this power that I exhibited before, that's actually why I can't get married. And so I'm looking for someone to take it away. And I don't really, Cassian, as sweet as he was just a hired hand, and he can fend for himself. So this is me like charging into the forest to get what I want. It's not a ruin reduction roll.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yep, I think we will we'll come back because of your compact with the stag knight. You will not be pursued by any creatures as you run on, and you will enter the realm of the Forest Queen, and we will come back to you shortly. Cassian, how are you reacting as again you see the effigies of you torn apart by the wild hunt? Priya abandons you, much as Theodan did. You're alone in this forest full of monsters.
Well, I guess I kind of turn, look at the stag knight. Does the deal she made about the hunt still stand?
I am afraid not, little one.
Hmm.
I suggest you run.
And I just start muttering and caressing my hand. And I'm going to try and cast sleep on him.
Certainly. Let's roll and see what happens.
Yeah. So I think I get one white and one ruin for the ritual. White, I'll take a devil's bargain.
Certainly. So, devil's bargain for this. So I think while you are conducting the ritual, you will be surrounded by the wild hunt. If this comes off, that probably won't necessarily be a problem, but you will still be in the midst of them. If this fails, it will not end well.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that chance. Okay. One. Oh man.
So the purple dice is not the highest, so you can add another purple dice and re-roll.
No. I think you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna re-roll. I'm gonna add. Let's just make this worse for me. I want to make it worse. So we're gonna do that and do that, and then Yeah, I guess I'll take the 4.
Certainly. So yes, you describe you will manage to put the stagnite into a slumber. So describe how that looks and what happens.
Yeah, so I think the entire time I have to keep eye contact with him, but my peripheral vision is now swarming with these, Feyhounds, and I am just getting more and more and more nervous. And I think that I am able to put him to sleep, but whatever action he wants to take before he goes down, I think. Because this is something that it isn't a short process. So I think he instinctively can tell what's happening.
Okay, yeah, no, I think actually the complication I'm going to add. So yeah, he falls into some, and he looks surprised. You don't think he expected this to work on him. He was just kind of going to brazen it out because he thought, it's just mortal magic. What can that do to me? But it does, and he falls asleep. It collapses unconscious in front of you, and the snarling wolves and dogs surround you, and they come closer and closer to you, and they are almost like within biting distance at this point around you, at least the first rank of them. And they all settle down onto their front paws and put their heads on the ground and look up at you. And yes, you are. Again, you get that instinctual feeling that, at least for now, the Wild Hunt is following you.
I would like to cast a binding spell on Cassian.
That sounds appropriate.
So I think while he was doing his spell, and I realized that it was starting to work because he'd put the whammy on me, I crept down out of the tree, and I sort of, as soon as it becomes clear that Cassian has sort of won, right, and has become the Horned Knight, I realize that in order to get what I want, I have to capture Cassian now. And so I root around in the ground and find the torn up effigy that used to be him. And I just start twisting it and muttering words. Actually, yeah, twisting it and wrapping leaves and twigs around it, muttering words.
Nice. Yeah. So, yeah, I think you'll obviously get the purple dice for using a ritual. I think. Does anyone have any? Cassian, do you have a suggestion for a devil's bargain on this, as it's affecting you?
Yeah, I mean, I know this is something that has to work one way or the other. So I think no matter the outcome, the Feyhounds know. And they will pursue you whether or not I am bound.
Yep, that sounds fair. I'm happy with that. Do you want to accept that, Teodan?
No, but I do, with the skilled in craft, skill apply here?
I think not. No, I think with
Okay.
with rituals, it does have to be specifically the ritual
Okay.
ritual skill.
All right, then I'm just going to roll one ruin die, and we're going to see what happens.
Yep.
3. I
3.
don't actually know what that means.
So 3 would be a failure.
Okay. Okay.
But you can. There's nothing to stop you from re-rolling with it. Oh no, sorry, there is something stopping you from re-rolling with.
It's the highest die, right?
Because it's the highest die.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So yes.
I guess we should have negotiated what happens or what the risk is, right?
Yeah, I think in this instance I think the risk is quite obvious. And especially as we're running to time now. So you cast this binding spell on Cassian, but there is no fettering the Stag Knight, the leader of the Wild Hunt. And I think like maybe vines or briars kind of rise up from the ground around Cassian, but they just sort of cinch around him, but then just shatter into dust and fall to the floor. And as one, the pack of hounds turns towards where towards where Teodan is, and they charge. And Teodan, I think, is maybe still sheltering up in that tree, but the tree does not remain standing. It is knocked to the floor, and the dogs tear Teodan apart.
Good night, cruel world.
So, Cassian, you have one request that you can ask of the Stag Knight. He's still unconscious, but that doesn't stop him from being. You again. You are aware that you have the power to make one thing you want happen. I should say almost. It can be it can be almost anything. There is one thing that you cannot do with the power you have been granted, and that is to remove yourself from the forest.
Well, just seems like such a long time ago since I came here. And I almost don't remember why I came originally. But I remember what happened recently. I remember being abandoned. And I think what I ask is that Priya gets exactly what she wants.
Excellent. And that ties in nicely. As Priya makes it through into a glade, and the forest changes again abruptly, and it's again you're back into that quite summery, deciduous forest, gold light through green leaves. And you come into a large, bigger than a clearing, at the edge of the forest it almost seems, but you know you're actually in the center of it. And there's a lake, a giant lake in the center, or in front of you. And in the lake, in the center of the lake, is a palace made entirely of ice, glittering in the sunlight. And you make your way inside the palace, inside the throne room. And in a carved wooden chair set in the center of a small pool of water sits a tall woman, more beautiful than any you've ever seen in your life, dressed sumptuously in a dress woven from leaves and flowers, a wooden crown set on her head. Oh, very well, a mortal. It's been a long time since one has reached my court. And she does a very dramatic look around. And it seems that only you have made it here. None of your companions have been so fortunate. You must be a truly exceptional creature. So, tell me, my sweet, what would you have of me?
And I approach her, and I'm probably being like far too rude, but I'm staring her straight in the face, and I raise a hand to my eye and I say, "This gesh in my eye, this thing that was put here by the witch, I can't get married in the church as long as I am tainted with it. And I want nothing more than to finally be married. And I want nothing more than to start the life that I want with someone new. So please allow me to become the bride that I want to be."
Oh, child, such a simple thing you ask of me. So simple and yet so beautiful. This is why I love mortals so. Oh, my dear, you shall have what you want and more. Oh, the eye is of no worry. You are beautiful with or without it. No. I can give you your wedding. I can give you your husband. I can give you the most loving, devoted husband you will ever have. And she will, lean back in her throne and make a vague gesture with her hand. And it must be admitted, somewhat groggily, a tall man, about 8 foot tall or so, gorgeous, the big antlers and the deer hooves, will step into the court. And say, "My dear knight, it appears your prayers have been answered, as the humans would say. This little one desires a husband, and you desire her. Well, isn't this just like a fairy tale?" And I think we'll cut it there. If everyone wants to do a brief epilogue, I think we will start. I think we will start with because he was the first one out. We will start with Teodan. I mean, Teodan is dead, but would you like to narrate sort of a little coda for his story?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything particularly fancy. I think it's just like a shot of the hounds in the pack just sort of like savaging something, and then there's like a cut back to like where the bear trap was left in the woods, and it's like snapped shut on a little twig, and then there's a cut back to the glade with the axe leaning up against the tree, and then a cut back to the house, and there's 2 little effigies still sitting in the house, and then a cut back to his house that he grew up in that's just completely empty.
Nice. And Cassian, what do you think happened after after we last saw Cassian?
Oof. Yeah. I think Cassian, as he was, is never seen again. I think that young man is gone, just completely. And I think we see an older man asleep in the forest with some of the hounds sniffing, and seems familiar, but when he wakes, he sees the world through new eyes, shall we say. And that said, the Horned Knight. The Horned Knight is as he always was and always will be. A figure destined not to be known for who he actually is.
Perfect. Thank you. And Priya.
So as we did that final pan of like the horned knight, the camera like slides to the side, and we see Priya standing next to him, and she is much taller now. She's over 7 feet tall, and all of those mortal imperfections have been ironed from her face. Her skin is that wood-like dryad appearance, and in one of her eyes, it is kind of blank and like serene. But then in her right eye, there's still like the roiling of the chaos, and this like miasma comes off of it. And she has this like joyous look on her face, but every once in a while, like her husband finds her staring into a lake, and she she says that she sees nothing, but when she looks in it, she sees her grandmother wasting away and dying all alone because she never came back and her sisters never took care of her. And there's a part of her that would cry if she could, but she can't anymore because she is now the summer doe, and she is a part of the Stag Knight and the Fairy Court.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. That was really good fun. Thank you all for playing. I'm going to stop the broadcast now. I know we're a bit over time already, so if anyone needs to leave, that's fine. I would like to do a quick debrief if we can. I might just say take literally like a 1 minute break or so, and then do a quick debrief, and then yeah, I'll not keep you too much longer. But anyway, thank you very much, and I'll stop the broadcast now.